Hi, folks.
Hello.
Hello. So we're just wrapping up the repo transfer. Setting up the windows again. Let me start sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, cool. That's set up. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah, thanks. So in the past week, we've made good progress on two key items. So first of all, thank you everyone. We just released 1.2. And I know, thank you, Joshua, for working on the blog. So once the blog is ready, we'll be able to announce that in our Slack channel as well. And it's a really big release, good improvements on the cosign verifier, and with the multi-tenancy support, it's really exciting to have like all the namespace and cluster separation. So we hope they get good adoption and usage, and we will publish the blog. Hopefully, Feynman, you were saying that we need to make some noise. Wondering, do you have any suggestions to what additional channels we should do? We have the blog, so we'll post that through Slack. Anything else that you have in mind?
I think we can try to keep our conversation and the project discussion as public as we can, because CNCF TOC members, they will review our activities and the whole Ratify project, the community in June. We will have the official CNCF review starting from June 11. So I think our exposure should be more, and we will have more visibility this month. So ideally, I would like to have more content available and to be published in this month, and we can also attract more visibility and eyes on Ratify project.
Yeah.
For example,
the other channel we have is the Twitter handle, correct?
Yeah, we have the Twitter handle.
Yeah, I have to check my access on that. Like, we've been pretty quiet on our Twitter account, but we can post something as well there.
Yeah.
And Josh, would you be able to, I don't know how big the follower base, would you be able to post something as well?
Of course, yeah, I can throw out the announcement for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And the other big thing that just happened is we just completed, well, we started the repository move. So in the following few days, we'll be cleaning up our GitHub workflows, recreating the tokens we need. And I would have to invite everyone back to the new organization. So Bridget helped us to take a screenshot of all the current members, and we just learned that we will need to invite them one by one. So please watch out for an email to rejoin Ratify project. So the new URL is, so if you go to the old URL, it auto redirects to the new URL. So the new URL is github.com ratify project ratify. Your personal fork should be intact. So I don't think there's an action item there. The only big thing we identified is the chart. The Helm chart may have moved from the Days Lab github.io URL to the Ratify project Ratify URL. And I created an issue on the Ratify repository with the command to remove the old repo and add the new URL. So I don't think there's a command to update the URL for Ratify, right? Do you have to remove and then Helm repo add again? Is there a single command that would replace the old URL?
I think the old URL will not be automatically redirect to the new organization, right?
Yeah. So I think I think as long as we have a note about where to find the new charts, people should be fine to figure it out, what they need to do to their repository list.
They can use, they can
Go ahead.
re-add. Yeah, I think if we finish the migration of the Helm chart, Ratify Helm chart, I think users will need to refresh their Helm repo source in their local and add the new Helm chart URL to their Helm repo source.
Yeah. After this meeting, I'll validate if our new Helm chart's automatically published. Because we do have a workflow to synchronize the content, but we haven't had a chance to check on their status yet.
Yeah, we can validate the Helm chart URL offline.
Yes. Cool. So that's just happened. It's very fresh. Well, let us know if you see there's anything that's broken or if you're blocked in any way. Hopefully we'll be able to clean up all this workflow status over the next few days. So the next agenda will be reviewing our PRs. I've pulled this one out just so that after our goal is to merge the 1.2 blog this week, right? So we can publish announcement. So Feynman, have you had a chance to look at the updates?
Yeah, I just reviewed today, and I think I will have more comments on this. It's still in the reviewing process on my side.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to check is, yeah, if we want to just update to the YouTube, and this link here points to the demo you did for the security meeting, Akash. Would that be the best link to include in the blog post, do you think? Let's see. Yeah, this is a general one that we want to just showcase what's the capability of Ratify. So I think that's the most relevant demo we've done, right?
Yes, but that's just gonna have the command line demo. It's not gonna have any execution or anything. So.
Yeah, exactly. Is there another one you would suggest?
Well, we have Jeremy's talk from KubeCon that we still have on the website. So we could either link to that or I don't think we have the recording yet for the CNCF tag meeting, because that one I did give the presentation has the content. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the KubeCon would be a good poll because people would see that and they'd want to definitely click.
Yeah, I think maybe we just use this one then. Yeah.
We can reach out to tech security folks and see whether they published the recording to the YouTube channel. If so, I think that video should be the up-to-date version. The landing page video, this might be a bit a lot behind our latest version because it was it was in last year, Europe 2023.
I see.
But I think the video will not block our PR review and also the blog post announcement. It's nice to have to include the video, the presentation that Akash demonstrated in the tech security. But if we don't have that video, it will not block us to publish and merge the PR.
Should I still update to the older KubeCon talk? Because the one that I linked to was build, so that's more vendor specific. So the KubeCon might be a little bit more neutral. Should I do that in the for the time being?
I would
Okay.
support that, yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you, Josh.
One random thought. I don't know how comfortable you would be on camera, Akash, but we could go through and do a live stream, just like a walkthrough of doing it, so that way there's like two people talking and we could just deploy the Helm chart and throw a signature on there, try to get it to like 5 to 10 minutes, and then you'd have at least a demo of Ratify, and then other features could be demoed later, but we could do something like that. Not holding up this blog post, just something we could do in the future if you're interested.
Yeah, sure. If you feel that's valuable, we can do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Would
Yeah, if
you
it's valuable, or where it would be, but it would give like kind of like here's the setup. We deployed the resources. We could even do with a kind cluster maybe locally, so it's even more neutral.
Yep.
Kind of sidestep the Azure stuff. And then just kind of show. So instead of just command line with commands run, we can add a little bit of context with the talking heads.
Yep, makes sense. Okay.
since if it's a live stream, would you announce it like, hey, we're doing a live stream, anyone, like invite others to join?
Yeah, that's usually what I do, and then we can take it and clip whatever banter we want out of it, and then make that a demo. But then you'd have the live stream where you'd have people could come in and ask questions and stuff. But
yeah, exciting. Cool. So in summary, we will update to the KubeCon video right here.
sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm still trying to navigate. So this is the project repository, and this is the web repository. While we're here, we'll take a look at the other documentation, PRs. I see Juncheng and Yi have left some comments. Are there anything to discuss here, Akash?
I think I've addressed most of your comments. If you could take another look when you have a chance, that'd be helpful. I addressed Juncheng's comments, and I am currently in the process of updating the document to add a section on the verify report schema. So if you were using keyed versus keyless, what are the different properties that the extension fields are going to have? But apart from that, I think it's pretty much ready to go.
Thank you, Akash. Our main repository, starting from the bottom. I know, Akash, this one, we are rerunning the workflow to make sure the vulnerability scanning is passing. Has it finished? Yeah, looks good. Is that correct?
Yep, looks like it passed.
So what happened to the vulnerability that was flagged?
I think it's still there, but yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened. It might have been because the scanner might have been updated. Maybe the scanner database, it dropped in severity or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So we didn't take a package update, but it was auto resolved.
Yeah.
Got it. So should we merge this one?
Yeah, I think it's ready to go.
Okay, so squash and merge is the right, double checking that's the right option.
So do you want to do this now, or do you want to use this as a test for maybe after the meeting when we're setting up the branch protection rules, what works, what doesn't?
Oh, I see, I see. Good
Yeah.
point.
Because we have nothing, we don't know what the state is. I don't think we've looked around at what the branch protection rules or anything are. So
Good point.
yeah.
Cool. We'll leave that as an experiment.
Yeah.
Next one, E, I know we will allocate some time after we've gone through the PR review. Are we okay to run through this later? I've extracted the main points that we need to align on. Or do you have a conflict later?
Uh, so then, sorry, what do you mean?
Oh, I'm just wondering if you want to run through this now, or do you have time later, maybe in 10 minutes, and we can go into more details on the proposal? Because I imagine the discussion would take about 10, 15 minutes at least.
Yeah, yeah, I have a time for the whole community meeting. If
Okay.
you have something, yeah, you urgent, you can do that. No problem for that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to do a quick run through for the other PRs and then come back to the proposal in more detail later. I think 1520, this one is pending review. Akash, Jingchen, please take a look. It's in the metric space. Akash, you have more context here.
Thanks, Bin. I'll take a look today or tomorrow. Yeah.
And for the dev to main PR, I had a quick look at the AKS test failures, Akash, but they all seem to be a little different. Like some of them is failing on unable to connect to localhost. Some of them was like unable to delete the gatekeeper namespace in the cleanup phase. Akash, do you know why all of them failed? Is it a particular new issue that we need to address?
The connect to localhost one, that one is new to me. If you want to open one of them up, we can quickly take a look. But there are,
Yeah, sure.
my investigation shows there's actually a lot of different types of failures here.
Yeah.
So
this one was connection refused, localhost.
could you go up a little bit? Oh, okay, bad. Okay, so this is a failure, I guess, in creating the resource.
Creating the Kubernetes cluster or
I think because I saw an ACR bad gateway error. If you scroll down.
scroll down.
Yeah, that one. See network connectivity issue.
Oh, that's new. I've never seen this before.
Same. Haven't seen this one. This is new.
Yeah, maybe there was some network issue at the time. Should I just rerun all of these? Oh, sorry. There's no point rerunning right now because we don't have the required setup, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the action item here would be to set up our tokens that's needed and then rerun the fail because we're not sure at this point what is the root cause. 1538, the trust stores type. Bin, I think you have the most context on this one. Would you be able to have a look?
Yeah, I can take a look.
Yeah. Great coverage, Juncheng. Only 6 lines that's missing coverage. 88%. Good job. Very impressive. Cool. Juncheng, is there anything that you want to discuss for this PR?
Oh no. Yeah, it's pen review.
Okay, cool. Would you be able to add a description to
sorry.
the...
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Would you be able to add a description on this PR? I know the details are in the issue, but sometimes it's easier to just have a quick review without clicking too many links.
For sure, I'll go ahead and add some more details.
Thank you, Jinchen. So just one more thing I want to check. Do we need additional end-to-end tests to cover the different store types? Bin, what do you think?
I remember currently the notation code doesn't support the TSS yet. So for end-to-end test, we cannot test it, but we already tested with the unit test.
Yeah.
So I think once we bump up notation code to support the TSS, and we need to add a new feature test.
Yeah, thanks. Improve Azure test resiliency. Yeah, thanks for looking into this, Akash. There's a lot of good discoveries here. We'll definitely take a look at this to improve the pass rate. So that one's to be reviewed. The last one is a dependable update. Oh, this is interesting. Now they don't mention the version, they just give you the hash in the title.
Yeah, because we pinned to hash now, right?
Ah, okay.
But this change is actually what I was waiting for, because the vulnerability that we were initially flagged for, this is the equivalent of Go 1.2, 1.11.
Okay, so once we have all the workflows running, this would be, we'll take this one into the dev branch.
Yep.
Sounds good. Cool. So back to the proposal PR. There's a few discussion threads on the PR. I think I've extracted the 3 things that we need to align on, and I think we already have alignment on the 3rd item. So for all the retrievals, like today, the KMP provider doesn't support, today currently we only support a pinned version and getting the latest version. So in the future, we will need to support fetching all versions. I think we're aligned on that. Is that correct? Just to confirm with everyone?
I don't think we are aligned on this. And before we get into this different comments, I just want to share that I did some major updates on the document, especially based on Jose's feedback. And also I didn't change the proposal. I mean, this PR title, periodic retriever. But actually, our purpose is to update the cache, the keys, and the certificates, right? So periodical retrieval is just one way. Jose mentioned another way that maybe, for example, Ratify can subscribe to some
Event-based,
then receive the notification immediately once there are some key or certificate state change. This is another way. So I update my proposal to make it more from user point of view. That's the problem we want to solve is to keep the keys and certificates up to date. And the periodical retrieval is one way to solve the problem. There is another way. So I add a section that as a proposed solution and do a comparison between these 2 options. In this proposal, I choose this periodical retrieval as the solution. So you can also take a look. This is one thing I add. Another thing is that the comments from Akash, Bingbing, and also Jose as well. I added some more information of the popular KMS, especially from GCP, HCP, AWS, and of course Arrow keywords. Currently, we already support that. Add a comparison, and also did some research on the key operations and the behavior of key rotation. I will share some details and some findings later. But this is another major update I did. Then another thing is about the experience, because this is about the how to automatically update certificates and keys that Ratify used. But I do mention some manual updates in case some urgent things needed to do, or customer want to or user want to refresh the keys and certificates immediately. I list several options at the bottom of this document. Please also take a look. And we can, of course, in this meeting, if we have time, we can discuss it. Okay, that's three major updates for this document. So maybe you guys needed to take another look. And we can address some comments as Susan, you list, and also some comments in the PR. We can work through them one by one.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll review the new changes. And let me go back to the PR. So I want to actually leave this view up. Going back to the conversations. Okay, so this thread is about whether we're building a solution for AKV specific or generic to all KMPs, correct?
Yeah, yeah, I can I can talk about this comment. So actually, after I did some investment, it seems that for the GCP KMS and AWS KMS, for the asymmetric key, I mean the sign related to the sign and verification, they did not support automatic key rotation. The reason is that once the key is automatically rotated, they need to firstly distribute the public key. So there could be some issue if from the verifier or application point of view, if they didn't get the public key updated in time, then, for example, the image is sent with the new rotated version, they cannot verify that. They mentioned this, so currently they did not support the automatic key rotation for the asymmetric key for the sign purpose in the Ratify context. This is one funding, and for GCP KMS and also AWS KMS, they did not support certificate management. They have another service for certificate management purpose. But for Notary project currently, we require this X509 certificate, right? But for Azure keywords, it supports both certificate and also the key management. And also for both certificate and the key, they support the rotation. There's no specific requirement on the asymmetric key rotation. So it can be done automatically. So these are the difference I listed in the key rotation. And Another finding is actually it is good. This is also I'm not saying good. I take this back. Some findings on the key rotation. So all this KMS they all support key versioning. So that means there will be a new version of key generated. This means the new version of the key materials generated. However, user can still reference, for example, the key name, or in AWS, they can reference some alias. So they can reference the alias. The alias will always fetch the latest version. But in our case, because we cached this latest version, right? So there could be, especially for the cosine scenario. So if some key signed by previous version, the image could be signed by previous version, and there could be some time that the image is signed with the previous version and also signed with the latest version. So if we only cache the latest version, then that means that the image is signed with the previous version. We cannot verify that. So this is also connected to Susan's comments, whether we should only maintain the latest version or all versions. So I think there's a
I
need
think
to
we're aligned
maintain
that
the previous version.
this is the minimum support that we need. We need a pinned version for customers who want to validate that one specific certificate or key is being used for the validation, and all versions. Like reading through the comments, I think that's pretty clear that we agree on a pinned version and all versions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then I misunderstood your point previously. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, for pinned version or version. Yeah, for the pinned version, we also need to regularly update. I mean, check the status. For example, the pinned version could be disabled for some reason.
Correct.
So it is not just that the user specific version, then we do not need to regular check the status of the pinned version. We still need to verify it.
Yes.
If I may, when I was going through this, I tried to pull out maybe the better word is the decisions that are in there, because there's several decisions that are in the proposal. The highest level one was the retry or the reconcile period, whether we're going to do event driven or we're going to do our timer interval. So that's one decision. Looks like we're alignment on that one, where we do the periodic retrieval. So that could be a decision that's made, or that we have alignment on. The next one was around the certificate rotation, which goes to the second bullet, which is there's two ways. There's the pin version, which is a little bit easier. We're only looking for the certificate of this version, and then that reconcile method can check to make sure that it's still valid, and then it would update accordingly, like what E just said. Or it could just say, oh, it's still there. I'm going to refresh, my timer interval, last fetched interval. But then the other scenario where I wanted to get a little bit more clarity on is the no version specified, where we take all the keys. Because it could mean we grab all the version of the keys if you don't specify a version, and then there could be, like 2 or 3, and then we could rotate through all versions and check the verifier that way. Or it could also mean we're only going to use the latest version if you don't give us a specified one. So that's kind of a decision that we should get more detail on, is does the default when there's no version specified mean we're going to grab all keys and check every version of it, or does it mean we're only going to check the latest version? Because then you could also specify multiple versions. But so that's just an implementation detail we should probably iron out. That's one decision. And then the last one, which is, I think, relatively simple, is the key and certificate revocation and disable. So you can either disable or you can just delete, which is how you would revoke it on like Key Vault. And that would be fairly simple to go forward, because if the reconciler hit and it saw that it was marked disabled in the property, or if it's no longer there, we can handle that. And then the verifier would, the reconciler would kick it out of the map, the key provider or key management provider. map, and then there wouldn't be anything to verify and it would fail. So those are the three main decisions in the proposal that I identified. And then we can kind of, maybe we can take more time and walk through each of those a little bit deeper if we want. I don't know if that adds any more clarity or if that's helpful, but that's how I was able to help make sense of the proposal a little bit. There's a lot in there, but it's good stuff though.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I think that's very helpful. So yes, back to the question on, so the scenario is we want to support fetching all version, and we also want to support pinned version. Maybe we want to support latest version, and what does the customer gesture look like?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, one way to solve it is we can just say default is, because the path most likely will be they're just going to put the cert name there and no version, and then that could mean we're going to grab every version and then check them that way, or it could mean like we're only going to grab latest and then give a different way to say get all keys, like maybe that's a different field. But Akash's got his hand up, so I'll let him speak.
No, I just had a more basic question, and sorry, this is maybe my lack of understanding of how things are cert management and key management happens in the real world. But if we're saying that we are okay using any version of the key, why do people actually generate a new version of the key?
Usually it's for it's security hygiene. So typically you're forced by your compliance, whatever compliance that you need to meet to have a new version of the key, but that compliance also does not force you with a very short time frame to make sure that only that new version is being used. So there is going to be a scenario, probably pretty likely, that there were things that were signed that haven't been rebuilt in 6 months that are using the old version. But because of our policies, we had to rotate the key, and things moving forward are being signed with the new.
Got it. Okay. So then there's a timeliness aspect to it too, right? You don't want it to be that I trust the version from 3 years ago. It may be that I want to trust the last 3 versions only because that falls under my time box of versions that I will accept if they're not signed by the latest one.
Yeah, so that the easy path in my mind is default means latest, where you don't specify a version and we're just gonna, whatever the latest version is in there, it's gonna support. And then if you want, you could say, hey, I want this key. I don't know how we would do this if it's currently supported, but this key with these 3 different versions, So then if they were to go and rotate the key, they'd go and update their key management provider to say cert 1 with version 1 and 2. And add it that way. I don't know how that would be entered in, but then that would address that scenario where because if you just say all keys, that key could be there for 5 years and still be valid, and there'd be no pruning, so to speak, built into the system.
Yeah, I know, Akash, you've left a comment about how CSI driver keeps a fetch. What's the property name? Sorry.
We call it object history version. So you can specify how many of the previous versions you want to consider. So you can say, if I only want to consider the last 3 versions in the lineage, I can specify 3.
Yeah.
We could hide that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we can refer.
Yeah.
Go ahead, He.
Yeah, I think this is related also Shui's comments. He mentioned the volume, right? I think this it makes sense. And from the rotation point of view, so why there is the rotation? Because it try to avoid any security issues. So the key will expire and the new version will be generated, but there will be a time overlapping that images can be signed by old version and the latest version. So I mean, after some time, all the images should be signed with the latest version, but there will be a time period. So I think yes, there's not necessary to maintain all the versions, but maybe some recent versions. Then, right, then when there's another latest version generated, we can maintain a very short list so that we can avoid that over time, the cached key versions could be very long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with this.
Yeah,
Okay.
so maybe
Yeah,
Akash, I
then
think
it
you
is just
already added a link
how,
to the CSI driver schema of a CR, right?
Yeah, I think that was actually in another chat. Let me set that as a separate
Okay.
comment on the PR, and then we can
Yeah.
use that. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so I think if in specifying the end versions that we want to fetch, we can refer to the secret store driver for ideas. But I think
Yeah.
we agree that
Thanks. Yeah.
that we will support multiple versions and a pinned version and the latest.
Yeah, we will, yeah, sorry. So maybe it's my network issue. So there could be some delay. But I agree that it could be multiple versions. So and yeah, I think this is good, and this is also solve Shiwei's comment. We can have a limited number of cached version maintained. I
Sounds
can
good.
also answer Shiwei's comment and also yeah, reference to Akash's comment later, so that we can see whether Shiwei has some other comments. Another thing is that we are talking about whether we should do it for all the KMS, right? So as I mentioned that for GCP, AWS, they do not support automatic key rotation. And also for AWS, it may not be possible to fetch the old version, I mean, using API. So this I need to dig deeper. I mean, after rotation. So although the old version can be returned in the KMS, but maybe there's no API that we can fetch it. So I will confirm this behavior later. So that means we can generally support this, for example, periodic retrieval of keys and certificate. But for example, for some KMS, if in the future we have a dedicated KMP, they may not support maintain multiple versions. They may only support maintain the latest version or pinned version. Maybe even pinned version, if it is got rotated, maybe customer need to manually update it.
I think that all makes sense. One simple way that I found to do
Maybe it's
the
my network issue.
Oh.
Can you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Josh.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
please go ahead.
Okay. So one simple way that I found just today to do the refetch, instead of worrying about the independent providers, you can actually do the timer on the reconcile method on the resource itself at an interval. And then so then that will trigger in and whatever the provider for the independent KMS options in the cloud is, they'll handle that logic. And so then we're just really just rerunning that method when the resource was recreated to say, hey, go and run whatever it is you do. And then each individual provider will say, Azure supports auto rotation. I'll get new versions or I'll check disabled state. If AWS doesn't do that, it'll just refresh the values that are there. So it'll at least check to make sure it's still active and not disabled. But it'll all be on the same mechanism and it'll just be hitting those provider endpoints, for lack of a better word, to determine what to do with the keys in the store or in the provider. So then we don't have to worry about, at a provider level, we'll have to worry about the nuts and bolts and details about each instance or variant. But from implementation, that retry or reconcile will just happen on the cluster.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Josh. I think from an technical implementation perspective, we want to keep the application logic as generic as possible. And one question that I had was,
Yeah.
The configuration of the interval, because I see in the proposal that it's being proposed that we can override the default provider level interval. Is that feasible with your current prototype, Josh?
Yeah, so there would be, my idea is just to add something just like that where we add the interval and then we have a default value and then you can override it to what you would want it to be. And then that would be what would be hitting the reconcile on the resource.
So a key vault like Susan's key vault would have a 4-hour periodic retrieval, and Akash's key vault maybe 3 minutes, but they're using the same type of provider of Azure key vault.
That's a good question. I think it would be defined on a higher level would be on the resource. So that wouldn't probably create another Kubernetes resource, would it? It would be like those providers are all going to be attached to the KMP. So it would be at the cluster's install level. So all providers would hit at the same interval is probably what would happen if you did the reconcile retrigger. But Akash might have more details than me on that because I'm pretty new to it.
Yeah, it's just going to depend on how we implement it, and how complex you want to be about scheduling it. You could actually have a scheduler at the KMP level that can schedule based off of each individual provider's preference when to actually pull it. But from the reconcile method, I think you're talking about scheduling it at the Kubernetes resource level so that it forces a reconcile. I think in Susan's scenario, because each AKV provider is limited to a single vault, it would actually result in 2 different Kubernetes resources. So theoretically, you could, I guess, kick it off since there's 2 different resources. But yes, it would need to be aware of, hey, this resource needs to be refreshed at this interval versus another resource has a different interval. And I'd be curious to see what API or what mechanism you were able to find that can actually
I'll
do.
show you the
Yeah.
link. Let's see
Okay.
here. It was actually from a colleague of mine. He did something with the Kata aware operator. Like he
Okay.
built his own. I'll share the link in chat so everybody can see it. But you can actually pull that property in and then write in the reconcile method itself and the operator, I believe is the right term.
Mhm.
You can schedule it right there. So here's a link to the code if you're curious. Or that is the code. Where's the link to the code? Copy.
Yeah, thanks. That's an implementation detail, just to point out that we're still investigating at what level the retrieval should be on. Back to the first comment. Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, I just add on top Susan's comment. So for my proposal, I will try to focus on user scenarios and how user interact with Ratify. And of course, some details may relate to implementation. For example, for the update interval, right? Whether we should put it on KMP level or for all the KMP. This decision also make a difference because user needed to find a different way for configuration, right? So this part is related, but we can maybe leave it later when Josh provides his design document. Something like that we can discuss further. But from my side, I think it will be very convenient for user to just configure this update interval per key management provider because it could be different for different provider.
Do you mean it could be different for each resource, like between the same provider, AKV, but for different key vaults, it could be different?
What I mean is on the resource level,
Got it. Thanks. Yeah. In that
But I
reflects the
mean,
CR
yeah,
that was shown as well.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. We'll look into that from a technical design perspective too. For this proposal to limit to AKV, so my understanding is this proposal is a generic design, like for all the key vaults that would support multiple versions will have this support. So to resolve this thread, this proposal is not limited to just key vault, but more like a general periodic fetch. Is that correct, E?
Yes. I think I updated this proposal, so it's a general one.
Sure. So should we resolve this
for all the
conversation? Is
KMP.
this one ready to
Yeah.
resolve?
I think so. Just one thing I want to highlight, because currently we only have AKV, right, and also inline, so we don't have others. So, but our plan is to make it more general. But for other KMP, once we have that in the future, there may be some specific cases. So we didn't foresee right now because
Yep.
we don't have it ready yet.
Yeah.
So I think we will do it for general purpose, but in the future, if some specific KMP has some issues, we can address at that time.
Yeah, really appreciate the comparison chart, E. Like at least we're doing our best to understand what other providers look like and try to design a generic solution, I think. That's great. So I'll
Yeah.
resolve this comment. Is that okay, Akash? Yep. So the next one is about
I think a lot of my comments relate to what Josh mentioned, the 3 different avenues, the pin version, the latest versus all versions or some n number of versions that we're going to use.
So this has been discussed. We can resolve this one too.
Yep.
Yep.
I think later I will also do some small updates based on Akash's reference to the CSI driver, right? So we will support multiple versions. Yeah.
Yeah, and this one is related to that as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
This one we talked about ideally the customer would be able to override the default, and maybe it's a different default for each provider. Do we want to decide on a default now, or that can be left till the implementation phase?
It probably can be left to the implementation, just in my opinion. From an operator's perspective, my expectation would be by default, all of them are going to have the same interval. If I don't specify anything, that would be my only 2 cents there. But I think it can be discussed in implementation. I think the CSI driver had a 2-hour interval, but it really
It was 2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes? Oh my goodness. So yeah, so that's way different. So yeah, I think that could get discussed later and do more research on, what makes sense and what performance that would have and stuff. But just that it's an option and overrideable, I think is sufficient.
Yep. For this side.
Yeah.
On the
Sorry, Sudan.
Go ahead.
I also want to confirm that because from notary project's signature point of view, it is only the root certificate added to the trust store. So in this AKV case, user merged the entire chain so that we can fetch the root certificate. So I want to understand in current implementation, it is only the root certificate cached, right? Or we cached the leaf certificate and the intermediate certificate. Are all the chain cached or only cached the C certificate?
do they appear as one object, like one certificate in AKV? Because
I think
from
that part I'm not sure.
yeah, go ahead, Binbin.
Yeah, I think we catch the chain of the certs.
Yeah, I remember because you specify the certificate name and then that maps to one object in AKV. And in that call, you would retrieve everything as like a blob together and you have to iterate through the loop to, and of course, like we already have the whole thing, we just cache the whole thing is my, what I remember that we're doing.
Mm.
We take the whole
But,
PEM block and deconstruct it.
But from the trust store point of view, only root CA certificate can be added, right? So if you added leaf certificate, there will be some issues. So my question is actually that it's better that we only cache what we need. For example, if from AKV implementation point of view, if user doesn't mark the private key exploitation to false, then maybe also private key also fetched. I think we should drop any other
Yeah, we
certificate
check
or keys.
the type and
keep
we
the
do
root.
not take in anything private and we log a message.
Okay, so we should only cache root CA certificate or it is a self-signed certificate.
In the
root
PEM
CA
block,
certificate and the
does it differentiate between this is a root? Because I remember in the code that the only check that we're doing is this a certificate? Like how do we differentiate that this block is a certificate versus this block is a self-signed certificate?
there is a flag, but I'm not sure whether you can check that from API level. I'm not sure.
I
But
see.
this is a question maybe later we can confirm.
Mhm.
Because we only need the root CA certificate from the whole chain. But if you do not have a chain, you are just a self-signed certificate, then it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So to answer the question, yes, we do get the whole chain and we pass through the block. Okay, let me finish this comment. Well, decide on default at implementation phase. Cool. Akash, go ahead.
Yeah, just to provide more details on that. So I just looked. So from the key management provider point of view, when we get from the inline provider, we will deconstruct and store the entire chain as certificates. But we have a filter valid certs. So in the notation verifier, when it's loading the certs into the trust store that the notation Go is going to use, we filter to check that only the CA cert is passed in to the trust store.
Okay, so for the inline provider, we cached everything in the inline resource, right? For the AKV, we only pass the root to the notation.
So at the notation verifier level, we are just in general, we only provide the CA cert, I think. Akash is what you were saying, the behavior is.
Yeah.
So for everything E, because there's no, like once you specify a key, the verifier itself doesn't really care which provider provided the key. So at the time of verifying, it has a method to say, get me the certificates. And in there we have a filter for CA cert.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for checking, Akash. Next one. Oh, okay. We're at time right now. Let's just go through these quickly to see if there's anything that hasn't already been discussed. So this one is about what can trigger a reconcile. So I think E was saying that any updates, of course, would trigger and reconcile. But if there's nothing that got updated, Akash, you're asking what metadata field would we recommend for the update?
Yeah.
Could the last fetch be updated? Is that kind of
I think the
is
last
that
fetch
the-
is in the status, isn't it?
okay?
Mhm. Yeah. We need some user input that will trigger it. So
Oh, I see,
Um,
something that will trigger it, but not the interval. I see.
yeah, because the application, the kubectl apply will look for the diff and then only apply if a resource spec has changed. So you need something the user does to nudge it, basically.
yeah,
Yeah, so go ahead, E.
yeah. I listed several options in the updated document, and I also mentioned here. So if we have a multiple instance, we can, if really needed, the user can restart it one by one, right? In another case, user can delete the existing resource and recreate it, right?
Yeah.
Will that be
Same
some problem?
Yeah, same as the original issue that Josh ran into, like the permission got reassigned. There's nothing that changed on the spec. I think the workaround at the time was to delete and recreate the CR.
I would not even recommend to a user to rotate the Ratify pods as a solution because we rely so much on the in-memory caches. We don't want to be flushing that just for a cert rotation event. That I don't think we should recommend that even as a way to do it. Definitely it'll achieve the same purpose, but it's going to cause other sort of damage too. So
Okay,
Yep.
then I can delete that one.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if nothing changes, the user has to recreate it, right?
It's not a recreate. It's kind of like you need to edit the template to add something new or delete something, make some sort of change on the resource.
I think the
if I
metadata probably
only,
is safer.
yeah,
Yeah.
but if I only want to reference the key, right, it will automatically fetch multiple versions. I don't change the key, so basically I don't have anything to change.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
But
Yeah.
for the metadata, can you maybe from implementation point of view, we can discuss further. So which fields for user to change, we can provide the guidance to the user because if we choose the periodic retriever, one of the downside is that it may not be immediate, right? So in any case, user wants to urgently get the update. So user has to do something. So if we can provide some guide for user, then that will be good, especially for some metadata field to change. For example, the name, right? But anyway, we need a guide for user to manually update in case for some timing urgency.
Yeah, I think which is why the secret store driver had like such a short interval that 2 minutes. We want to probably double check the other key vault request limits, but for Azure Key Vault, you can do thousands of GET transactions like every few seconds. So even at a 2-minute default interview.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But this will be a problem because if we do it frequently, then maybe user should not choose a long key. How to say that? User, for example, for cosine, user should choose Cayley's sign, right? Then you don't need to worry about this key rotation. And for notary projects, because I mentioned that only the root state certificate is required, and the root state certificate normally it will not, it will have a long validate. So, for example, if you configure the inline provider for notary project signature, you specify the root. For example, it has 7 years, and you specify trust identity. So even you rotate the certificate frequently, this the trust policy point of view, it will not change. So you don't need to modify anything.
A case of if you have a frequent refresh frequency, it'll address all the scenarios where you revoked and you need to trigger and reconcile. If you change the permission, you need to then manually get on the cluster and trigger a reconcile. And from a limit, key vault transaction limit perspective, every 2 minutes isn't hurting the quota. So what's the downside of configuring a more frequent retrieval?
Well,
From my side, I think I don't think it's necessary.
I see.
Yeah,
just
because
something to consider. Like the limit is there, but it can do thousands of transactions per minute at least. But yeah, we said we will leave that as the implementation phase. And for the current comment, I think this one is also related to versioning. So Akash, is it okay to resolve?
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyway, please take a look at the updated version.
Yeah,
Offline.
it's very, very useful to have the comparison chart. Thanks for that, Yi. The error scenario, Yi, I was just making it generic. Like if we received a 400 response, 404 not found, like, or in these bad request situations, we're going to evict from the cache. But if it's like 500 in general terms, it may be a system error. So we will keep the certificate from previous session. Is that a general rule to follow?
I think this is a good question we can follow up later.
Okay.
For example, for the 403, we may not need to remove, but it depends. I think we need to discuss further.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and this is also related to implementation as well.
Yep. Yep. So Binbin, this one is being handled because we'll review the cloud comparison chart. This one's being discussed. And we do not, yes, we mean retrieve all the unexpired ones. So the disabled ones will be filtered out. So I'll resolve this one. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Yi.
No, I just want to mention Binbin's this comment. I cannot reply. It's I don't know what's the reason.
Yeah, maybe you can quote, like you can
Normally there will be a edit box, right?
yes.
He did it so no one could dispute him.
It might be because are they in response to another comment?
I see.
Above, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so related to the previous comment, we don't want disabled keys, but we want expired keys.
From my investigation for expired key, if the key is expired, it cannot be used for sign. This is controlled by the KMS. So
yeah,
if
but what
you
about
are,
for validation, Yi?
yeah, I mean, if you cannot sign with the expired key, that's controlled that the KMS make sure that the expired key cannot to be used for sign images. But for verification part, expired key can be used for verification.
Yep, so we will
the
fetch it.
one, yeah, the ones I think from security point of view, because if expired key cannot be signed, so that will be safe for user to use it for verification. But if
Correct.
expired key can be signed, then there will be a problem. We cannot fetch it because if it is expired, maybe someone else fetched this key and use it to sign, but the KMS and make sure that the expired key cannot be signed. And anyway, we will have a very short list we want to maintain. So I think it will be safe to use.
We would like to know the validation passes using latest key instead of some old expired key. Yep. How do we make sure the customer know? So we talked about that gesture, like fetching only the last N versions. That way we have some confidence that it's using the more recent ones. Bin, does that help with this comment?
I think this is a bit different. So what we have discussed is when we fetching the third or keys, but this is more about when we do the actual validation. And so currently we can like get maybe latest 3 versions of a cert, and maybe users want to confirm that the validation is using the latest one, but but the actual validation might using the maybe the second and last one. So so that's why
I feel in this case they would use the pinned version. Go ahead, Akash.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's a really good point, Bin, because from the cosine point of view, we have to cycle through the keys, and the extension fields will tell you that which key was actually used and was successful. But does something like that exist for notation? Because I know notation just loads the trust store and then performs verification and automatically picks from the trust store which certificate it's going to use. Is there a way to bubble up from notation side that, hey, we use this particular certificate when the signature validation occurred and it validated to true in that scenario?
I don't think the notation reports that.
If we think that's required by the customer, we can create an issue for notation.
Sorry, I needed to drop, but we can continue the discussion. I mean, maybe offline with Bin about this, then we can share with you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have to drop. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the last comment from Shuwei is around the volume. And I think, given there's thousands of requests can be made to the key vault, that shouldn't be a problem, especially with limit to the last N. Cool. I think that's all the comment. We'll review the latest update and we'll probably discuss more if needed at the next meetup. Any other items? Anyone?
None that I have.
So what about the report move validation?
Yeah, so actually I'm going to schedule a meeting after this. So maybe we'll get like a break for 5 minutes and we'll hop on another call because we need to go through the tokens to ensure our workflows are valid. I think first of all, we want to make sure the charts are up. And then second, we'll want to make sure all the workflows are up. Meanwhile, Josh, if you see anything that's like 404, let us know.
Okay, can do.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Bye.
Thank you. See you.